Welcome, everyone, to the magical frequency. On tonight's episode, I want to talk about what persistence actually means because many of us in the community speak on persistence, but this can look very different for different people, for different situations. In my world, I also like to think of persistence as a form of resilience, and we're going to talk about how this actually works in this 3D physical reality that we're in this simulated environment. If you are new here, my name is Chrissy and I am a simulation theorist. So I operate a lot of this lens, so to speak, but also through a lens of just higher consciousness, recognizing that everything I say could is a bunch of nonsense in the end of it all, because we are just really living in one big dream illusion. So these are all just our theories and concepts of how we believe it works, but I am an observer of patterns and I do see things that actually work. Just me talking from an esoteric perspective or telling you to visualize, actually telling you what has happened, leading you through a few stories so you can have my perspective of what persistence has looked like for me. So the first way I would say persistence has worked fantastic for me is in construction and obtaining of construction things, projects, selling of homes. Oftentimes when you are perhaps selling real estate, if you are working on a property or your own house, this will come up where construction is required. And I say construction to mean like you need your roof redone, you need new siding, you need anything of this nature. Jobs that can be upwards of 10, 20, 30, $40,000 in a clip. And one way that persistence has worked for me is when these projects come up is to not go with the first quote that I receive. I will be persistent in whichever amount of money I think the job should cost. I think that if you're someone who has been in the game for a little while, you get a roundabout idea of how much different jobs should cost. And you will get oftentimes different estimates that you know are not within the realm of what you're willing to pay for, or they're trying to upshoot you. Sometimes, perhaps, if there's something you're trying to have repaired, they might attempt to have you rebuild the entire thing or knock down a significant portion of it. There's just all these different things that usually take place if you're maybe getting a new system of some sort, electricity or new wiring, things of this nature. You will get a multitude of quotes. And how I've used different things like the power of visualization, or often just speaking it into existence, like just saying to somebody, I'm going to get this job for 10 grand. Like if 3 contractors told me no, 30,000, I'm going to persist. I'm going to continue to contact people, see what I can do. Always found a contractor that was willing to do the work at a fair price for what I needed it for within my estimate. And that has always worked with the power of persistence. And persistence looked like me thinking about the number that I wanted to pay, speaking it out loud, oftentimes maybe consulting with somebody just to verify things. I would even go to the internet, and nowadays you can use a chat GPT to probably give you estimates of what things should cost. So persistence to me is seeing that number, making the calls, getting the calls until I get the number that I want. Could I get lucky the first time? Absolutely. Has this happened for me? Yes, where I was really pleased with the price that they gave me. They gave me a really good deal up front because they may have done lots of these things. This happened with me with a dumpster company. Usually dumpsters cost lots of money. My properties, I was able to find a dumpster quickly for a really good deal. So that was an instance of where I was able to get something cheap, especially when I saw what the others online were charging for it. I made the phone call and that worked out very well for me on the first occasion. There's been other occasions where I've had to look for other people to get entire new drywalls or ceilings or paint jobs, or if you have to do new floors, it will cost a pretty penny. If you use persistence, you can do this with everything. This could be anything in your world. Think about your lawn people. Think about any other goods and services that you are getting. You can usually find something that is within your price range that makes you happy, that doesn't have to be astronomical. That is what the power of persistence and being resilient as well, not taking no for the initial answer when somebody attempts to tell you that something can't be done at a certain price or that this is what they're going to charge. You can look elsewhere. You can procure other vendors. You can shop around. You can talk to people. You can do all the different things in the real world down here to be able to shift your simulation. And again, if it doesn't happen on the first shot, you just think about it a little bit. Like for me, I'll just be like, no, I want to pay, 10,000 for this job, and I'll persist in that thought. So I'll not only persist in calling some people, usually it isn't too cumbersome to make those phone calls. It isn't like this horrible painful thing. Usually, oftentimes, if you're going through a situation where like a hurricane hits or something, it will take sometimes people a long time to call you back, and then you really have to persist. But depending on what you're focusing on, you can get all of those different little kinds of deals or to work out for you pretty instantaneous. Somebody tells you some sort of insane price the first time, don't always believe it. You can go out and think about your own price, and usually it'll show up. It is the simulation shifting, I swear. It's almost as if you visualize these things, like you go in blind, or you could be anticipating the number too. But sometimes you'll get one number and then you'll just like ponder upon your number that you really want for a minute, recycle the action again, and then you'll get the number that you wanted. It's very interesting in that way. That's how persistence works. And the simulation will shift to give you that number, in my opinion. That's why I think that it works, because it's just showing you what you actually want, because there's always going to be a variety of possibilities, and you are the one observing the quantum decision. If a construction job, you're observing it from a quantum perspective and recognizing all of the potentialities for that price of that job. And then you're observing the potentiality of it being 10,000 and not 30,000. And then what'll happen is the simulation will shift into a guy that would love to do the job for you for 10,000, and it's no sweat off his back, and he'll have it done in 2 or 3 days with these guys that are happy to make the $10,000, as opposed to the other people that they have their whatever jobs doing whatever they were doing, or if they just fall into the rest of the simulation to the background. I don't know. Just kidding. Or am I? It's just one way that persistence really, really works. And then another way is, for example, when I my house, there was everybody kind of working against me, telling me that it wasn't possible. If you're new here, I now have a house in Florida. And when I was buying it, working against me, saying like, you're not going to find a house for $350. This is not a good time to buy, so on and so forth. And if I would have listened to that, I would not be sitting in my house right now, and I would not have been living the life that I wanted to live the last 2 years if I would have just kept listening to people. And what ended up happening is that the simulation did shift for me. Even when the first time it was not a yes. When I put the initial bid on my house, the gentleman laughed at me and told me no. And the bid was extremely lower than the asking price, but with persistence, I sat and waited on it. I remember waiting weekends going by of open houses, of waiting if somebody was going to try to put a bid on it. But I kept persisting in my mind. I even had other weird things that I did that if you go down the shoot on my channel, you would see. I got the house for significantly cheaper for the price that I wanted. And I kept saying this price in my mind. It was like, this is what I wanted to pay. Same thing too, when I sold my other house, I literally wanted a certain price. This was a rental. I had put a certain amount of money into it. I wanted to see a certain amount of money out of it. And I kept saying this price over and over again. And I kept saying who was going to buy it and when, and everything literally came true down to like the amount of monies that I was wanting. So I know that this does work if you pay attention and focus on what you want and use the power of persistence and observe your reality through that lens. And when you are doing these deals, when we talk about money, a 401k, persistence is leaving the money in there even when you see it dipping down low. There's been times where my money has dropped in like 14 days or something like this, like $8,000 or $9,000, but not freaking out and attempting to like move funds or switch things up. Just leave it be. And then eventually it does recoup. It goes back to normal. It starts to reset itself. So there are things like that where you can be persistent in, but I don't have like millions of dollars in trades at all time. I have, over 100,000, but I don't have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of thousands of dollars in trades, just, no sweat off my back. But it would be nice. But in some reality, I do. But in this reality, the money that I do have is significant enough. It's nothing to sneeze at, but it's to where if I see things dipping, leaving what I know is supposed to be left there in a persistent state, believing that it will always turn out better and better. And it has been. Even when my money has dropped, it has like doubled and tripled and has always come back when I needed it to. So that's like another form of persistence. And doing that, that's a tough one because that comes with risks. It comes with that scary feeling in your stomach when you're seeing something drop thousands and thousands of dollars at a time. It can be very scary, but knowing that it's all a simulation and that you just want to stick with your persistence because it doesn't matter. Because if you just focus on knowing that you are going to get more, it will completely continue to just double and triple. I won't even think about a specific number. I just always think in my head, it doesn't matter. This is just the ebb and flow of the stock cycles or what have you. And I will be doubling and tripling and quadrupling and whatevering all my money. And I always persist and I always get what I want in that reality, in that realm. And that's why I have the bread that I do. Persistence works in other ways too. It's if there's something maybe that you want. So at one point, and I still want it, I just need to think about it. I'm like, do I want more cars? There is a specific car that I want, and I was looking around and couldn't find it. But because of persistence, you keep looking, and then suddenly the actual car that I wanted popped up, and it was so crazy that it was down to the actual color, like Barbie pink. Certain things of this nature were in the auto listing, and it was just one of those weird, creepy instances where if you just think about something and you look around for it a little bit, use a little bit of persistence. And that one was actually pretty instantaneous. Like I looked around just at a couple of sites, it popped up relatively quickly. But if you persist and don't give up on the first thing or on the first no or on the first thing that feels like it could be like a door shutting, they're not. They're just another door opening for you, is what it is. And you just have to continue to walk into that door, into that avenue. Looking at a website that didn't have what I wanted, but as soon as I clicked on a new browser and got on the other website to observe immediately the vehicle that I wanted. And it was just one of them creepy instances where immediately what I wanted with a little bit of persistence showed up. And there's short-term persistence and there's long-term persistence. Relationships, for example, another way we like to talk about persistence is relationships. And I think that when you persist in just seeing that other person as their best self, or seeing them how they would be happiest, like how you think that they would be happiest if you were in their situation, actually going into that person's situation, thinking about how they would be happiest. If that includes you in their life, essentially persisting in that thought of you and that person in a loving, kind relationship. There could be situations where you and that SP just don't maybe belong together, and you can manifest a different version of the person that you really should be with. Oftentimes, if you just are apart from somebody and you recognize the things that maybe were not working in the relationship, it may be for the good. In the community that would say, like, don't have limiting beliefs, you can manifest any person you want, and because everything is you pushed out and your source and your God and blah blah blah. And I totally get that, but for me, in my opinion, persistence looks like loving yourself. Persistence with SP situations looks like the right thing for you, loving yourself more than any SP would first, and then seeing how you would feel about an SP, because oftentimes we are looking for some sort of external validation, said SP, because they are there to offer us some attention, some affection, something that you may be craving from external validation or from the external world. And of course, these are natural feelings. Like, we are meant to seek out companionship or a mate or a partner. So it's very normal to not want to be alone all the time. But I think it is important to be able to love being with yourself, understanding what your likes and dislikes are, understanding what a partner would bring into your world and what a partner does to you. Do you think that you are the best version of yourself with this person? What happened to deteriorate that relationship? And another way that I've always looked at it, even before I was into any of these kinds of concepts, was, why would you pursue somebody who does not want you? For me, there's a level of self-loathing there with that, because you're pursuing somebody that openly doesn't want you. So you're almost subjecting yourself to knowing that there's failure there, or that there's an uphill battle to be won with somebody over your affection, and your affection should be something that is a prize or a gift to somebody else. And the fact that you would need to mold yourself into something for somebody else to love you when you don't truly love yourself, to persist in obsession or persist in thinking about what somebody's doing all the time, if you are persisting in thinking about what they're doing on their free time, about who they're hanging out with, about what their social media looks like, about who they could be potentially dating, you are persisting in a state of desperation, and you are persisting in a state of want. The persistence that you're looking for in the simulated environment, the persistence of having, you want to be in the state of you have all the love that you need, and the love will just come into you. You will see the love that you want in front of you, and it will start to play out for you. If you are focusing on all of the ways that things will not work out, if you are persisting in thoughts that things are never going your way, or that there's always these other people that are involved in the situation, you will continue to persist in that state, and you will see that continued flow of whatever situation that is with that SP. I articulated that in such a way that somebody gets something from that, because I don't often talk about SP situations, but you can't really leave that out when you're talking about things like persistence in the real world. And the same thing with jobs and careers. If you focus on a number and you go for it persistently, those people, I feel like they get there, baby. If you see a number and you keep going for it, if you even look on the ladder of my life or whatever, my career, I've always gone up the pay scale. There's been small gaps where I didn't go up as much as I wanted to, but it was because I was like in my snail phase where I wasn't paying attention oftentimes to how much like of a pay jump I was getting for the amount of work that I was putting in. But when I started waking up and recognizing, no, like, wait a minute, that's when I started jumping in great, what you would consider quantum leaps into more money. And this was something that also took persistence. It's persistence in knowing that you can make more and more. And then when you persist in that thought of knowing that you can make more and more money, for me, it was recruiters reaching out, interviews, people offering me different positions, me being able to turn down positions that I was offered because maybe I didn't feel like that was enough money and I'm waiting for the next position. Definitely a good feeling to know that if you persist in these thoughts of how much money you should be making for whatever it is that you're doing, the simulation has to show it. It has to catch up, because that's what state you're dwelling in. Those are the thoughts that you are consistently thinking about. If you know that you are, worth $300,000 and can't nobody tell you nothing, people get paid this kind of money. It's no problem. You will find somebody that will want to pay you that kind of money. That's just how it works, because the simulation will shift. Something will pop up where somebody needs you to do something and they will have the 300,000 to give you, and this is just how it works, because that's how you use persistence. You persist in these thoughts, you persist in these things that you know will happen for you, and then different opportunities will just start to crop up. We'll call you for opportunities. Jobs will call you. Recruiters will call you. Emails will pop up. Jobs listings will pop up. Like, just like all these different things. Somebody will call you that they need something, and it just, all these different little things will crop up, and you will suddenly just get this amount of money that you were persistently thinking about. And then on top of that, knowing that this was just going to happen, because we're living in a simulated environment, and what you persist in your frequency, the simulation, the simi will shift for you. It will show it to you on the screen, whatever it is. You just need to persist in those thoughts and those subsequent actions. Telling you my kind of actions in the real world that I was taking. I'm not sure what other kind of actions people take to get things constructed down here. I don't know if people are able to, like, they're so ingrained in God bodiness that they just think of something and it just shows up like boom. So I've not achieved that level of God bodiness yet, to where I just have certain things just show up, just my entire, roof just gets redone in the blink of an eye. Like, it can't happen that quickly, like in a day, but like, it's not like I just think of my roof being redone and my roof is suddenly just magically redone. I've not reach that level of being able to shift the sim. I usually have to call somebody to redo the roof. So this is how persistence works for me in this environment. Persisting on things that you are wanting to experience. This could work for vacations. I had a job once where I really wanted to travel, and suddenly I was traveling the entire world. I went to London multiple times. I went to Miami multiple times. I went to Texas. I went to California multiple times. I traveled the entire country. There's so many more. The Bahamas. I'm missing places. And this was just me wanting to do more traveling. And then it was like, boom, you can go travel the world now, baby. So that's how quickly you can get things to work for you if you just persist in these thoughts. With the flow, the simulation will just start shifting for you. Things will just start happening. You will be put at the right place at the right time for whatever it is that you're looking for. And you don't even have to really think too hard about the mechanics in the background. Just got to make a couple phone calls. I know everybody enjoyed this video because there is nothing else quite like this out here on the internets. And until the next time, guys, I know you all are going to continue to manifest magic and resonate on your highest frequency. Bye, guys.